Welcome to your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit. What started as a so-called national security tariff on Canadian metals has exploded into a $22 billion trade brawl. US President Trump's move triggered Canada's sharpest retaliation yet. A 50% tariff blitz targeting US exports that fuels tension across auto, beverage, and tech supply chains. As EV production faces fresh headwinds and political pressure mounts on both sides of the border, this isn't just a tariff fight, it's a test of industrial grit and geopolitical muscle. Buckle up. Here are the key flashpoints, strategies, and high-voltage consequences shaking North America's economic engine. From metal to mayhem, how Section 232 lit the fuse. The tension ignited in March when President Trump invoked Section 232 to slap a 50% tariff on Canadian steel and aluminum, citing national security. Officially, the aim was to block Chinese steel routed through Canada. But leaked memos revealed the real focus was origin switching, not Canada itself. Ottawa viewed it as an economic ambush cloaked in defense rhetoric. Initially, Canada played it cool, rolling out a $3.5 billion Canadian support fund for domestic producers like Stelco and Rio Tinto. But prices surged. Canadian hot-rolled coil steel jumped $308 per ton above US rates, hammering construction budgets and car chassis costs. By June, companies across Ontario and British Columbia were drowning in emergency loans. Then came the breaking point. During a confidential cabinet session at the Rideau Wing, Prime Minister Mark Carney greenlit full retaliation, a 50% tariff on $22 billion of U.S. exports. The leak hit headlines within hours, rattling Bay Street and sparking lobbying chaos in D.C. This wasn't just trade, it was a geopolitical reset, with Canada drawing a sharp line in the steel-laden sand. But retaliating with tariffs wasn't Canada's only move. It was just the beginning of a far more calculated strategy. Carney's Counterstrike, turning tariffs into a science-backed offensive. Canada's response wasn't just tit for tat. It was a calculated maneuver built on carbon data, political momentum, and industrial strategy. Instead of reacting emotionally, Carney flipped the script with a science-first, values-driven play. Within 48 hours, his team launched a forensic audit of Canadian steel and aluminum, using furnace chemistry reports and carbon isotope data to debunk the U.S. national security claim. The narrative shifted. Canada wasn't just a victim, it was a cleaner, smarter producer. Meanwhile, simulations showed that Ottawa's 50% tariff on U.S. steel could add $420 Canadian per ton, translating to about $850 Canadian in added cost per SUV or pickup for American automakers. That pain? Felt in Detroit, not Toronto. Public support surged. Nearly 7 in 10 Ontarians backed the move. Carney built a domestic coalition with the NDP and Bloc Québécois, while industry players, from United Steelworkers to aluminum groups and beverage giants, lined up behind him. This wasn't just retaliation. It was a campaign for climate accountability, economic justice, and national self-respect. Canada wasn't playing defense anymore. It was setting the new industrial rules of engagement. Before we shift into the next chapter, if you're finding this breakdown valuable, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a shift in the global auto landscape from Piston Pundit. Now, let's look at how Canada backed its bold rhetoric with billions in climate-focused industrial reinvestment. The Greensteel blueprint. Ottawa bets big on climate and capacity. Carney didn't just fight back. He doubled down on Canada's long-term industrial edge. Enter the Greensteel Accord, a $4.8 billion Canadian initiative to modernize the nation's metal production with an eye toward climate leadership and future-proof supply chains. Think beyond tariffs. This was an industrial moonshot. Electric arc furnaces in Hamilton, hydrogen DRI lines in Sault Ste. Marie, inert anode aluminum in Quebec. These weren't vanity projects. They were strategic assets to cement Canada's place in the EV and aerospace revolutions. And here's the piston point. Automakers from Tesla to Ford rely on Canadian low-carbon metals to meet strict U.S. tax credit rules under the Inflation Reduction Act. If Ottawa's supply dries up or becomes too costly, Detroit's battery lines and even SpaceX's Montreal-forged alloys could hit delays. The strategy? A tariff ladder. If Washington eases up, so will Ottawa. But if the U.S. holds firm, so will Canada, backed by clean tech, global alliances, and steel hardened with purpose. And speaking of tremors, let's explore how these tariffs are shaking corporate boardrooms and political calculations. Boardroom blowback and the politics of pain. As Canada's tariffs took hold, U.S. industries, especially automakers, were hit hard. Ford and GM projected losses of 45 million Canadian dollars per model cycle, with profit margins shrinking by 320 Canadian dollars per vehicle due to pricier Canadian steel. Aluminum can costs were set to rise by 5 cents, threatening craft breweries already operating on thin margins. While Ottawa worked on partial exemptions for major producers, the damage was already leaking into balance sheets and store shelves. Politically, Trump stuck to his protectionist script, appealing to Rust Belt voters. But behind the scenes, alarms rang. The American Iron and Steel Institute warned that the tariffs could reduce U.S. blast furnace utilization by 4 points, costing 7,800 jobs. Senator Bill Hagerty broke ranks, calling the Canada crackdown short-sighted. Tesla and SpaceX lobbied against aluminum disruptions that threatened production timelines. Carney stayed the course, backed by a powerful coalition. His aim wasn't just to retaliate, it was to reposition Canada as a values-led counterweight to Washington's unilateralism. As the campaign season heated up, the real cost of tariffs was beginning to hit home. But the reverberations didn't stop in North America. Global markets were watching closely, and some were already reacting. The world watches as trade war tectonics shift. What began as a North American standoff quickly became a global test case. Canada filed a WTO complaint over the U.S.'s use of Section 232, but with the appellate body effectively frozen, a verdict could take years, if it comes at all. Meanwhile, Japan, South Korea, and Australia watched closely. Each had endured past U.S. steel tariffs, and Canada's bold 50% counterstrike could become a model for future pushback against Washington's protectionist habits. China capitalized on the discord. With the West divided, Beijing rerouted steel through Kazakhstan and Eurasian trade routes, quietly growing its market share as North America turned inward. The ripple effects hit tech too. Tesla's Berlin gigafactory may now source aluminum from Indonesia, higher in emissions, risking EU and US green tax credits. SpaceX, dependent on Montreal's aerospace-grade aluminum, faced costly delays that could extend Starship upgrades into 2026. Canada responded with a global PR blitz, branding itself the responsible trade actor. The deeper story? This clash is about more than metals. It's a high-stakes blueprint for future trade shaped by climate, tech, and geopolitical fault lines. So where does this all leave us? Final gear, the verdict on a steel-edged standoff. What started as a tariff spat over steel has evolved into a high-stakes industrial chess match. Canada's 50% counter-tariff wasn't just retaliation. It was a calculated, multi-layered strategy blending climate policy, economic resilience, and geopolitical signaling. Carney used the moment to push Canada into the spotlight, fusing clean tech goals with assertive trade policy. Meanwhile, Trump doubled down on traditional protectionism, hoping to rally blue-collar support. But if higher costs ripple through automakers, brewers, and rocket builders, those slogans may wear thin before Election Day. Now, North America stands at a crossroads: advance toward a climate-aligned industrial future, or fall back into short-term, zero-sum tactics. Before you roll out, is Canada's move a blueprint for smarter trade, or just diplomatic saber-rattling? Can green tariffs reshape global supply chains, or do they just fuel chaos? As the pressure builds, whose gamble pays off? Carney's climate capitalism, or Trump's tariff playbook? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read everyone here at Piston Pundit. And don't forget to subscribe so you're always in gear for the next big shift in the auto world. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next run down the industrial highway. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's plenty more to explore.